He's the anchor of Fox News Channel's Special Report with Bret Baier and will be moderating the Republican Presidential Candidate Debate in Sioux City December 15th. Mr. Bret Baier. Bret, thanks for joining us.
Jordan, happy to be here.
Okay, let's get right into it. Iowa is proud of its first in the nation status, as you know, and it's been threatened the past few election cycles. This year, it was moved all the way up to January 3rd. What's your take on this, and is it good for politics?
Well, there are a lot of different views about Iowa. There are some people who think it has too much influence, but frankly, it does show that the retail campaigning really pays off for these candidates. And the folks who spend the most time touching base with voters in Iowa and spend the time campaigning there seem to be doing better and better. I think Iowa is a unique situation in that it enables somebody who maybe doesn't have a big organization money-wise to springboard from something good in Iowa to possibly go into the rest of the campaign with a lot of momentum.
Now, it seems like we hear this every 4 years, but with the economy teetering on another recession, jobs aren't where they should be, America's frustrated. Is 2012 the most important election of our time?
It's definitely one of them. Depending on who you ask, it will be a real battle of whether what the president is doing is working, or people start to believe that it's heading in the right direction. That's what the administration is hoping for. They can make the case that things are starting to get back on the right track. That's what they're hoping for. Republicans are saying that this is a different direction that the president has taken the country, and they're hoping that people say it's time for a different direction. Republicans are saying that this is the biggest election ideologically really in history.
Now, we'll get to President Obama's plans in just a minute, but what do you think Republicans need to do in order to have a legitimate shot at beating the president?
Well, you know, it's going to be close no matter what happens. Whomever the nominee becomes, it will be a very close election, just as you look at the numbers. And if the economy is improving, as the administration hopes it will be very tough in certain swing states. But Republicans are now vying for who is going to be the best candidate to try to beat President Obama. And as you well know, there's a battle between Governor Romney and the folks who are not Governor Romney, and perhaps more conservative. And I think Iowa will go a long way to kind of straightening out that battle.
And you kind of touched on it a little bit. What do you think of these candidates in line to win the nomination? Obviously, we have Governor Romney and, like you said, those that aren't Governor Romney. Do you think Republicans maybe have the right group in line? I know that's been a question that's brought up this cycle.
Yeah, I mean, it's not for me to determine whether the candidates are right or wrong. We just cover it. But I can tell you what we're hearing out in the field and from analysts all over the country is that there still is a hunger. They're now satisfied with this field largely, according to the polls, about 65%. But there is a debate about whether Governor Romney is the best person, the best standard bearer to go up against President Obama. The bottom line is that Republicans want someone who can win in November. And according to the polls, they're just not sure who that is as of yet. Iowa might go a long way to determining early on where the Republican thought is.
Now, what's been your reaction to the so-called Flavor of the Month candidate? We've been seeing it now for a little bit. First, it was Congresswoman Michelle Bachmann, followed by Governor Perry, then Herman Cain. Now it looks as if former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, is starting to gain some steam.
That's right. I mean, that's how the dynamic in this race has evolved, and it's really amazing. It's not like any race that we can remember here in a long time. And I was talking to Bret Hume about this the other day. He was thinking this is really a unique set of circumstances, in part because of all of the social media and the cable television, and people can make a splash and get a lot of attention and then also make a gaffe and get a lot of attention. These debates have really had an impact on this race, and I think it's interesting to see whether Newt Gingrich can hold on in Iowa is really the question of the day. And don't count out Congressman Ron Paul, who has a really big ground game in Iowa and throughout the early primary states.
And speaking of which, I know that you said Representative Paul and Congressman Bachmann have both stated that they feel the media is heavily influencing who's actually in the lead for the nomination. And Representative Paul looks like he's got a valid claim, as he's still performing pretty well in a lot of straw polls. Do you think voters are paying attention to the media as much as maybe they did in the past?
I do think coverage plays a part, but I said from the beginning, I think these debates have been significant moments in this election. And Congressman Paul's campaign and the congressman have a beef about the amount of time and the amount of space he's been given in some of these debates. I think the last one, he got 89 seconds or something in the whole debate, according to their campaign. We're going to try in Sioux City to really be as balanced as we can be. It's tough when you have 8 candidates on the stage to balance it out time-wise and question-wise, but we're going to attempt to do just that.
Now, focusing on our current commander-in-chief, what's the one thing President Obama may need to do to focus on 2012?
I don't usually get into the business of giving the president advice, but I will tell you this, that people in this town, lawmakers up on Capitol Hill, say it's all about jobs, and every poll says that. So figuring out how to get the economy back where it's producing jobs and businesses feel certain about their future is something the administration is going to have to try to do. If they can convince businesses that this is the time to invest and this is the time to expand payrolls, then that's a winning strategy for the administration. It's not clear yet that the numbers are going to turn around that significantly by November 2012.
Now, looking back, 2008 brought out an enormous number of first-time and younger voters. Will we see this again, and could that potentially hurt President Obama, who it benefited 4 years ago?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I don't know if you see as much support out there. Again, just reading polls, and polls can be quirky things, but you don't see as much support from younger people for President Obama. He's lost some support, significant support with independents, and that will be a challenge as you get into having one Republican nominee against the president. You will see the dynamic of this race change dramatically, and it will likely become more ugly, and it will likely become an effort to get out the base of each party.
Now, we've been seeing it across the nation. First, it was the Tea Party movement, then it was Occupy Wall Street. What's your reaction to these two things, and is this maybe a good thing for politics and for the nation in general?
Again, I'm not the opinion guy. O'Reilly will give you his thoughts on where he stands on everything, but I'm the news guy. I cover it. I can tell you there are panelists who weigh in on these issues every night on my panel. Seem to put it in different categories, the Tea Party and Occupy Wall Street. The Tea Party had a very specific goal. Largely, it was a bunch of different groups around the country, but they still had a legislative goal to cut spending, lower taxes, go back to a constitutional-based government. And even though there were different groups, it kind of had a similar theme in which led to 2010 and the midterm elections, in which they really had a big say on that election. It's not clear yet how Occupy Wall Street will do that. There doesn't seem to be one coherent message, and lawmakers who've tried to tap into it have had a little bit of a danger in that they start embracing this thing that they don't really know, and you have some incidents like in Oakland and some protests that turn violent. So I don't think they're similar. They may have an effect on the election, though.
And now that we're fully in the debate season, what have you seen in the season that has kind of stood out to you about the debates this election cycle?
Well, they've been well viewed. Our debate in Orlando, Florida, was the most watched debate ever in a primary. 6.2 million watched it on TV, and 6.1 million streamed it on YouTube live. They are making a difference, and they are an ability for the country to really see how these candidates deal with each other and also how they deal with tough questions. There are some people who are critical, and we get tons of emails saying you know, you shouldn't ask these tough questions. You should ask the same question to everybody and then have them go down the line. We look at it that this is an opportunity to really have the candidates explain their positions, defend where they could be vulnerable, because if they don't see the questions now, they're likely going to get them in a general election if they're a nominee. So it won't be easy softballs, but we also want to hear how they differentiate each other from each other to help the voters out.
And I know many people in Sioux City are excited to have the debate come and see yourself December 15th. Bret, I want to thank you again for joining us.
Hey, we're looking forward to it. Happy to be in Sioux City.
All right, that was Fox News Channel's Bret Baier.